spooky season, and so today I want to talk about the one word that strikes the most fear into the hearts of almost every nonfiction author I talk to. Platform. Woo! Today, I want to talk about the mindset shifts that are absolutely crucial if you want to head into any specific strategies for growing your platform. I'm going to give you a few strategies I've talked about in the past, as well as the way you can think about these strategies to make sure they are effective for you and your book. Stay tuned.
If you're writing a memoir, but you're not sure where to start, and let's face it, you're not really sure where you're going after you do get started, then you are not alone. Not having a plan for your memoir is one of the most common reasons I see that people fall off of these projects that they care about so deeply. And that's why my team created the Memoir Method Checklist. This absolutely free download is going to take you through every single step along with the timeline, all the way from your seed of an idea all the way through holding that beautiful book in your hands. And you can download it at pageandpodium.com/checklist. Happy writing.
If you are a nonfiction author who is hoping to get a traditional book deal, platform is really, really important. In fact, I would venture a speculation that probably the number one reason that agents and publishers will reject a book proposal or just simply not take it on is that the author does not have a sizable platform. Now, what do we mean by platform? Platform just simply means your ability to reach the people that would be interested in your book. Okay, I said this in a very specific way because there are a lot of misconceptions about platform. I think the number one most common misconception, people hear me say platform, they think I am saying that you need millions and millions of followers. Now, is it great to have millions and millions of followers? Of course, I would not say no to having millions and millions of followers, but that is not what we mean here. And in fact, I want to give an example, and all of the love and shout outs to Justin Timberlake, who is just a dear. I love him. But there was an incident that was really big around the publishing world whenever his book came out. Now, at that time, Justin Timberlake had around 53 million social media followers. A dream, right? Now, in the business world, it's often assumed that you can think about 1 to 2% of someone's kind of following their email list is going to opt in to any kind of reasonably priced offer, right? So a book would certainly be that. Now, if we think 53 million followers and we think 1 to 2% of those people might buy this book, that is massive book sales, right? Any publisher is going to jump on board with that. Well, Timberlake's book only sold about 100,000 copies. Now, only, would we all be delighted to sell 100,000 copies of our books? Yes, absolutely. So this is only kind of a tongue-in-cheek criticism. But the reason I bring it up is that social media followers do not equal book sales. And publishers know that. Not just from Timberlake, by the way. That was known before. That's just a really great example of how those numbers don't necessarily translate. And the reason is, it is much, much more valuable to have people who are engaged with you in smaller numbers than it is to have people who are just following you passively in massive, huge numbers. When people are engaged, when you have really thought about who it is you want to help, how best to help them, when you, for instance, have experience actually helping them either one-on-one, in group programs, you have so much more value to that publisher than someone who has maybe bought a bunch of followers, right? Somebody who has kind of, they did a campaign, but mostly people aren't really engaged. They've just kind of got the names. It is so much more beneficial if you can demonstrate that you are dialed in to what your people need. Okay? So when we think about platform, what we're thinking about is how a publisher is going to see your ability to sell books. Now, that does not mean, by the way, that the publisher isn't going to do any marketing. They will do the marketing. But every publisher wants to see that you are going to be an equal partner in the promotion of this book so that they are not just out there trying to get this book to sell. You're just hanging out at home in your sweatpants. They want to see that you are actively with them and engaged. And the best way to do this is to demonstrate not only that you will do it when your book comes out, but that you're already doing it. You're already building more people to follow you. Now, every publisher knows, and most authors should, by the way, that when you publish a book, any organic platform you already had that you were already building is going to grow. Not only do you now have a book, so you have reason for people to follow you. Two, you're going to have a marketing campaign that's going to be going. You're going to be doing active promotion. And as I have talked about on this channel many times, you have added credibility. For nonfiction authors, that credibility is the entire reason people are following you in the first place. So when you build that credibility by getting that book out, you will naturally build your platform. So publishers know that your platform is a work in progress at all times. It is not something that you need to kind of feel embarrassed or bad about if you don't have Justin Timberlake numbers or even 20% of Justin Timberlake numbers. They know that you are actively working on building the platform, not just because you say so, but because you can show that you have been working on it. And that's what I want to talk about today. How do you continually work on strategizing and growing your platform so that your amazing book with all of your incredible ideas is going to be so much more marketable, so much more dialed into the people you're trying to reach, and so much more, frankly, motivated on your end to get that book out because you have been already building this platform. It's important to you to reach the people you want to talk to, and you are in with them. Okay, so let me start by kind of mentioning some of the strategies. I've talked about this before in a much older video. Some of the strategies that I usually recommend to people trying to build a platform, things like if you can leverage any major organizations you're part of, that might be an alumni association, it might be kind of a national business organization. It might be if you're an academic or a researcher or a certified professional of some kind, organization like that. Are there ways that you can use events they're already planning to kind of get in front of more people, particularly if you're speaking to people that would also be engaged in that organization? The second thing I've talked a lot about is using social media. If you are somebody who is really kind of wanting to get a very, very broad reach, you may want to think about a social media campaign. One thing I'm seeing a lot lately that seems to be very, very effective for authors is releasing short either TikTok videos or reels where you are giving just one kind of little nugget of wisdom. You can batch these, put out, 5, 10, 15 a week so that you can kind of see what really resonates, dial in that messaging, just keep at it. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But that can be a really great way to first build a following that then you'll be able to send toward your book, particularly when you are thoughtful about this and using the ideas from your book in that content. That can be really useful. The third thing you can do is start local, especially if you are somebody who already doesn't have a big following. Probably if you're watching this, that's you. Using that local in, whether that's your Chamber of Commerce, again, other local groups, your church, depending on really what you're talking about in your book. It can be a great way to start out local. Is that going to build your platform huge? No, but it might give you the experience that you need to step up, right? If you have not done a lot of speaking in public, finding those local groups, that is often a way that you can get in and get started, so that you can demonstrate that you're going to be a good speaker and kind of level up a little bit at a time. You also can use other types of media that aren't social media. So that can be things like pitching guest posts or guest articles. I see a lot of people do this very successfully on, say, Forbes Women. We've had a lot of authors that used Forbes Women, but really any national blog, if you can pitch a guest post, oftentimes you have to write it in advance to show them what you're going to do. Well worth the time, right? You are getting just a little bit more coverage, a little bit more credibility. And then you also can go for media interviews. So particularly if you're somebody that is good in any kind of an interview, but you're good on camera or you're good on microphone, you can pitch yourself as an expert guest because you're working on a book, right? An expert guest on things like podcasts, radio shows, local or regional news media, and all the way up, right? You can start pitching yourself. I would work from the comfort level that you have, and then just push the envelope up, up, up until you are at the level of stage that you are looking for. Those are all things that you can do, right? We might even call them tactics, actually, things that you want to do. I want to get really more in the weeds today and think about, as you are doing those or other tactics, how can you be strategic about the way that you are using those tactics? So I have 6 tips that no matter what your approach is going to be to this platform building stuff, you are going to need to keep all of these in mind at all times. And what that means is you can kind of look through these 6 things and really be very strategic about how you want to get your ideas out there, how you want to build your platform. Okay, without further ado, number 1, the very first thing that you must do for any kind of marketing, promotion, platform building, anything like that, is you must really dial in to who your target market is. Now, target market, when we kind of use those words, I don't know, it gets a little bit more intimidating. All we mean in this case is who is your ideal reader. Now, sometimes when I ask people that, like, who do you think will benefit from this book? Who do you think will like this book? Sometimes the response will be, I think everybody. I think everybody could get something out of this book. That's probably true. Actually, I think most books could probably teach something to everybody, but everybody is way too broad. When you are trying to reach people in this very noisy world we live in, people really need to feel like you are talking directly to them. That looks all kinds of ways, right? It can look like your kind of posture, your mannerisms. It can look like the types of words you choose. It can look like the topics you pick for your content. But you can't do any of that targeting until you know who the person is. So the first thing you need to do is really ask yourself, who can I help with this? Maybe everybody, but who specifically? So if you're somebody, for instance, who is a business owner or a practitioner of some sort, so that you are in contact with clients, your clients are probably your target market, right? Your clients are probably a really good reflection on who you are naturally reaching, just kind of with who you are. I find that this is very often the case, is that any of us, when we start a new business, which a book is a new business, by the way, any of us, really, the first people that come to us are just the people that are kind of like us anyway, right? The people that would be our friends if we met them out in the street. So I want you to dial this in. Who is this person? What are they like? What are they looking for right now? Kind of, if they're Googling, what are they searching for? What do they need? What's missing in their life? What do they like to consume? Do they like reels? Do they like articles? Do they like podcasts? And finally, where are they? So where are they? This could be that they are at major conventions, and your best bet is to get to those conventions and either start introducing yourself to people, get on a panel, try to get any kind of a speaking arrangement, try to get a booth at a expo fair, whatever it might be. Where are they? If you can find them, then you can put yourself there, right? You can get to the places they are. This is always going to be the first step to any kind of marketing and promotion. And when you're building platform, that's all you're doing. Starting out a marketing and promotion campaign. So figure out first, who is that target audience? Because any of those strategies, any of those tactics I mentioned above, they're all going to be dependent on how well you know that audience, what they're looking for, who they are, where they hang out. Okay, number 2, the second thing that I want you to do, no matter what tactic you're using, is I want you to think about promoting the idea, not the book. Now, this is a mistake that I see all over the internet all the time. I understand why. When your book comes out, there's so much pride in having a book, right? Oftentimes you love the cover. So I will see authors who are really just sharing the cover of their book over and over and over. The title, maybe the little description. They're just sharing the book. And you can guess what happens, right? Most people just don't care, especially people who aren't already your followers. So if you're showing, on social media or in some other venue, you're just sharing the book and the book and the book and the book, people just really tune it out. And there's a really good reason for this. Most of us have so many people and ideas and things and places vying for our attention that we just aren't really likely to focus on a thing, a book, an untested idea, right? To us. What we want are things that will help us. And one of the most key things in any marketing and promotion campaign, including platform building, is that you are showing yourself to be a helpful person. Someone who genuinely wants to be in conversation with other people, to make their lives a little bit better, to share information that you have that you've learned the hard way, to talk about your experiences, to pump people up, whatever it might be. People can feel when you are genuinely and authentically wanting to help them. And most of us, when we want to help other people, we do not just flash our wares, right? When we really want to help people, we are thinking about, what kinds of problems am I seeing in the world in day to day that I could help with? What are pieces of advice that I'm giving out over and over and over in my kind of one-on-one meetings that I can share? I could share on a broader scale, right? In fact, I could make 5 different reels with that same piece of information kind of framed a little bit differently, see what resonates. When you are trying to get the ideas out, people can tell that you are trying to help them. And you know what happens then is that people want to reciprocate, right? People want to be in relationship with people who are genuinely helpful. So do not promote your book. Promote the idea, because I promise you this is going to get more people interested in what you have to say. They're going to find that one tip helpful and they're going to follow for more. And guess what your book is? A book full of tips. No matter what you're talking about, even if it's not a how-to or self-help, your book is that information that expands on those tips. So get those tips out there, get those ideas out there. Now, because sometimes when I say this to people, they'll object a little bit and they'll say, but if I tell people everything that's in my book, why would they buy my book? This is not the way to do it, right? Because what we are trying to prove is that we as an author are experts. We are here to help, and we have information to share. Literally, the only way that you can make a case for those 3 things is if you reveal the contents of your book. I don't want you to post whole chapters or pages, but the ideas that you share there, they make excellent internet content. You do not need to be coming up with a whole bunch of different stuff. Share the ideas from your book and then let people know that they can get more like it by purchasing that book. Okay, the third thing. As you are building your tactics, as you are thinking about how you're going to build this platform, the number one thing, I know everything's a number one thing for me, but one of the most important things to keep in mind throughout the process is that consistency is key. If you ask anyone who has a sizable social media following that they built up from scratch organically, they will tell you that it took a while to do that. Sometimes we will get, a viral post and we'll see our numbers go up. For most of us, it's a long game. We are playing little by little. We are building up people, and it's exponential. You'll start building and then it'll go a little faster and then a little faster and so on. But what would happen in 90% of cases is that if we are consistent, almost any tactic will work. The consistency is the key. So if you decide that your tactic is going to be writing blog posts, write a blog post every single week. If your tactic is putting out reels, you should be putting out reels like probably every day, actually. You don't need to record reels every day, but you should be putting reels out all the time. It's going to give you so much more data. It's going to give people a chance to find you, lets the algorithm know you're active. Whatever it is, the key is going to be consistency. And bonus tip, also patience. It takes a really long time in some cases to get that tactic to stick. But the more you can be patient and consistent and just kind of watch what's happening. Don't get so, frustrated that things aren't happening right away. Watch how things are happening. Be proud of the progress that you're making. Just really stick to it. Remember why you're doing this. Yes, we all want our book out there, but really the more you can think about, I want to help people, the more that will help you be consistent. And as you are consistent, you are going to build that platform. It's inevitable, truly. Okay, a little bit of contradictory sounding experience. The next thing I want you to do is be willing to experiment. Now, I'm going to complicate this a little bit, but what I want to say is that sometimes I will see authors who, and sometimes I'm part of this, by the way, we'll kind of sit down and we're like, okay, how are we going to strategize? What do we want to do here? And we say, you know what, we're going to do a podcast tour. So a podcast tour, you try to line up as many podcast interviews, particularly right around the time the book is coming out, as you can. What this means is that podcast listeners will start to hear your name kind of over and over in different places. And there is nothing that gives the feeling of kind of buzz and credibility and expertise than when we see that same person showing up in all of our podcasts, right? That is magical. But there are times in which podcast tours don't work. Sometimes it is to everyone's surprise. It will seem like a book is a perfect candidate for a podcast tour, and then crickets. So the reason you need to be really open to experimenting is that when we have that experience, when we set out and say, you know what, podcast tour or blog post tour, whatever it might be, we set out to do that. If that falls flat, our options are 1, to totally give up, or 2, to figure out what went wrong and try a different strategy. I don't want you to give up. I want you to try a different strategy. So what this requires of us is that we are open to the fact that our book, our idea, is specific to us. And that means no matter how well Joe Schmo author's book did because he did a podcast tour, because he did a lecture circuit, that might not be true for us. And that doesn't mean we're less talented, doesn't mean our ideas don't matter as much. There's just some kind of secret sauce that's not clicking. So if you set out to do that podcast tour and you find it's just not doing it, maybe you decide you're going to pivot a little bit. Maybe we're going to try Reels instead then, or maybe we're going to go for and see if we can do kind of a local TV circuit and just see if we can get some feedback. Whatever it might be, we do need to be willing to try different things, even if they're not kind of what the gurus told us to do. Now, I want to add a little caveat. You know, I love a caveat. And that is that it's also very possible that you need to balance patience with experimentation. What I don't want you to hear me saying is try something for a couple weeks, and if it doesn't work, switch gears. We really have to balance this. And so one thing that I would recommend is if you are, trying out a new tactic, you're not sure how it's going to work in your niche, give it 4 months, right? Set an actual expiration date. How long will I be consistent with this strategy before I decide to try something different? That way you're not kind of just like shooting from the hip, right? I'm feeling like it's not working, I better change it up. That can be kind of a recipe for just being all over the place, and then we're not being consistent, right? So instead, think about how can you really set out a very, very clear strategy for yourself while also allowing yourself to try new things if you're not getting the results that you want. All right, and the next tip number 5, I want you to start early. Start early. I hear this so often that folks will say to me, "Oh, I don't want to start my platform. I don't think I can build my platform because my book's not out yet. So how would I build a platform?" The problem is publishers see this in exactly the opposite way. Publishers say, "Why should we publish your book if you don't have a platform?" So this is not a chicken or egg situation. What I want to tell you is that this is very often a self-doubt situation. What I will see is that people with so much expertise, so much authority in their niche, so many important ideas that people need to hear, get so used to having that expertise that they kind of forget it's expertise. I call this the curse of expertise, by the way. When you have that situation, it is very, very easy to believe that no one wants to hear from you until you have some concrete piece of authority, right? Until you have that book. Absolutely not. People want helpful, useful, applicable information all the time from anyone that has any expertise. You do not need a book to be an authority figure to be able to have people listen to you. You just don't. So even though I know it's very tempting to kick this can down the road, we'll all just kind of start working on this whenever, I've got the book out, I'm under contract. Don't do that. Right now, as soon as you close out this video, brainstorm a couple things that you could start doing today. What's your gut say? Does your gut say reels are going to be it? Does your gut say podcast interviews? Whatever it is, start researching, start making a plan, because it is never, ever too early. If you have that book in mind, you are working on a book. You can use that to pitch, truly. Get out there and get started early. Do not let that voice in your head tell you that you're not important enough, you don't have anything to say. You do. And now is the time to start saying it. Okay, and my sixth and final tip, my sixth and final mindset shift. This is such a big one. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. I can't tell you how many people have these amazing connections. They have friends who, work at major universities, or they have a friend who is a producer on a TV show, or they know someone who has a podcast with 1 million followers, or whatever it might be. But they'll kind of minimize themselves, right? They'll say like, I don't want to just feel like asking people for favors, whatever. Here's what I want to tell you. If you have someone with a connection like that, it may not be them that's doing the favor for you. You may be the one that's doing the favor for them. I can tell you, as someone who does a weekly video podcast, when people reach out to me and want to be on the show, I am not ever mad about that. It's usually just me, but having an expert that volunteers to want to be interviewed on that is great. I'm going to jump at that every time. If I think it is valuable to y'all, I'm going to have them on here. That is true for everyone that is putting out content. We get tired. Reach out to people. Tell them what you can offer their audience. Show them that you genuinely want to be helpful. You're not just trying to wave your book in people's faces. I guarantee you, you are giving something back the same way that you are taking. So don't let this fear that who am I to be out here? Who am I to pitch myself for this opportunity? Do not let that stop you. Oftentimes, there are excellent, excellent resources in your back pocket that would help you build your platform. And all it takes is for you to claim that you deserve that opportunity. And you do. You do. You're writing a book. You're doing something huge that might feel selfish at times, but usually what I find is it is quite selfless. So do not be afraid to be bold, to ask, to put yourself out there, let people know what you're working on, because I promise you, people want to help, and you're going to help them too. Okay, all of these 6 things, if you keep these all in mind, you cannot go wrong. Any tactic that you use, if you can follow these 6 things, you're going to be in really great shape. Remember, all it takes is for you to decide that you can do it. I know you can. I also know it's scary. But it is time today. As soon as you shut this video off, I want you to make a list of what you could do to start building that platform right now. Pick things that are easy, pick things that are fun, pick things that are going to feel good, and get out there and tell the world what you know. Happy writing.
Writing your memoir can be one of the most rewarding, fulfilling, beneficial tasks that you can take on in this lifetime. But unfortunately, it can also be kind of a slog, especially if you don't know how to plan your time. And that is why my team has put together an absolutely free resource called the Memoir Method Checklist. This checklist is going to take you through every single step you need from that very first seed of an idea all the way through publishing that book and holding it in your hands. We're going to give you the steps, we're going to give you the timeline, and we are going to make sure that you always know where you're going, even a step before you get there. You can download this resource for free at pageandpodium.com/checklist. And once you do, let me know what you think. I would love to hear from you, hear about your book, and hear about how your writing is going.